right, let's talk about the truth about van life. I think it's making a resurgence again. It sort of seems to come and go at waves in social media where it becomes more popular, and then you have these people that are posting videos about how cool it is. And I'll be honest, like it looks cool and it is cool, but we need to talk about some things first. So if you're doing it for the purpose of saving money to like avoid having a job that you don't like, I gotta be honest with you. Saving money like that, doing it to save money, is a full-time job, and it's a shitty job. And that's okay. Sometimes you work full-time shitty jobs because there's things that you need to do and you want in life, and it facilitates that lifestyle, and it's fine. But I'm just saying, like, if you're doing it thinking that it's the answer, that it's the solution, that it's going to solve all your problems, it's not. It's going to introduce a lot of new problems, and that might be okay because it will allow you to do things like travel and see places you will never do. So what I want to say is this. First of all, do I think that everyone who's interested should do it? Absolutely, if they can, for a short period of time, say like 3 to 6 months, for sure. Should they expect it to be a long-term lifestyle? Absolutely not for like 99% of people. And here's why. It becomes something completely different. The first few months, it's like almost all awesome, you know? And it's hard to see this, you know, honeymoon period, blah, 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 whatever. You know, it's true for a lot of things, relationships, new car, new home, new city, but it's just even more extreme when you're doing something like an extreme lifestyle change, like van life. And after a few months, when you've seen everything and done it, the benefits start to go down a lot, and then the difficulties start to go up a lot. Okay, so let's talk about what those actually are. I mean, we have to address this. Like, you've gone camping, right? Hopefully. If you've never gone camping, then I don't know what you're thinking. This is not for you. You don't like the outdoors enough. You know, if you've never gone camping, then there's no, you can't make your entire life camping. Basically, like, having a van is just the coolest tent ever that you don't have to set up or take down, and it's completely rainproof and has nice storage, but you're still camping, okay? So you've been camping, and you know that that's fun for a short period of time, but like, you make a lot of sacrifices, right? But the whole point of camping is that you're doing that, like, you're spending the time outdoors, and it's a quieter lifestyle and all of this. But is that something you really want to do every day for a long time? Is it? I don't know, but maybe it is. Like, and you know, you should know if it is. That's what I want to say. So, like, for example, me, before I had tried and experienced that lifestyle, you know, I was someone who would enjoy camping occasionally, but like a couple days max. I could never imagine camping for like a week, or camping like every weekend for a long amount of time. And if that's you, where you're already like, oh, camping, that's too much. That's a good indication that this lifestyle is probably not for you, like a long-term situation. And the reason is, like, the reason you should do this is because you really, really enjoy nature. Like, really. Like, you're really about the trees and stuff. Because if you're really not about the trees and stuff, then this is just a way to travel on a budget, and it's cool, but it's a super full-time job to achieve those savings, and it's like not as cheap or effective as you think for just traveling. Now, it's super cheap and effective for camping and spending a lot of time in nature. So, like, if that's your main goal, that's the way to go about it. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit more, because like, you can hear those things, but it, you know, when you're watching the stuff on Instagram and seeing these videos, this is just gonna go, no, it's fine, because what they're doing looks way more cool, and parts of it are way more cool for the first few months. So it's like, man, I wish everybody could do some sort of a trial period. That's the hardest part about this, is there's like this thing where you're like, oh, I need the vehicle, right? Like you don't have the vehicle. And to rent one is like really not so cheap. I wish there were a better way that you could rent it and try it out. But it's like, I think it's mostly stupid expensive. But if you're one of those people that are thinking about doing it in like a more high end kind of way, like you're thinking about going like Winnebago, Sprinter kind of thing, like you're thinking about spending big money, then you should absolutely rent one for like a month first. Absolutely. One, it's going to give you a better idea of what you actually need in your setup. And two, like 1 month, I mean, really the best way to do it is if you just do it for a month here and there. That's like the best way to do it. So you might do it for a month, get your fix, and then be good for a few months. Anyways, so it's difficult to test it out without actually doing it. So what I would recommend, and this is what I did for a little bit, is just go camping. Right? What? But I don't want to camp. I want the van life, the travel. But like, you got to really, really see how you're enjoying being with nature, you know? So take whatever car you got, and the driving, you're gonna be driving a lot if you're doing this, you know, you just go somewhere 2 hours, 3 hours, and go camp for the weekend. And if that idea is already off-putting in your mind, I hate to break it to you, but 6 months into this thing, this lifestyle is gonna be off-putting to you. Like the idea of just driving 3 hours to go camp somewhere for the weekend sounds off-putting. The realities of what you're going to face living in the van life are going to be a lot like that after a few months when it really sets in. So do that and just see how you really feel being with the trees and everything, because that's the truth. If you're doing this on a budget to save money, you're going to be in the middle of freaking nowhere with the trees if you want to do it for cheap. Because if you want to stay in places like near cities and stuff, you're going to be paying money for those campsites, and they're not cheap. You know, they can be like, you know, like $15, but they can be as much as like $30 a night to park your thing in a camp place, you know? And so it can get quite expensive if you're not just out there with the trees for a long-term lifestyle. That's the main thing I'm trying to make you aware of, is the long-term feasibility of it. Like when you're dreaming about this, don't think that you're going to be able to quit your job and retire because now you live in your car forever. Oof, forever is a long time. And that car will last a while. But will you? Will you? And gas is not cheap either too. So it's like the idea of traveling for an extended period of time is might not be what you think. You can do it slowly, and that's the way to do it. But again, hanging out in the woods by yourself a lot of times, and some of those are, and then because of it, you will see the most beautiful nature you've ever absolutely seen and would never see otherwise. Like, and I remember, okay, so story time, my trip to Yellowstone, right? This is kind of cool. Yeah, going to Yellowstone. Yellowstone's literally world famous. People come from all over the world. I mean, literally millions of people. Some people fly in and go just to go to Yellowstone, right? And so I'm making my way to Yellowstone, and it's in the middle of nowhere, guys. I guess surrounded by a bunch of states, but you probably couldn't point out a map. But the funniest thing was the journey there, and this is the story of Vanlife, by the way. The journey there was way cooler than there. So it's like the places that I was just driving through, looking around, it's like the most incredible nature, no one to be seen for hundreds of miles, just pure, untouched, insanely beautiful nature that you've never heard, ever seen. But like literally your drive is like a desktop wallpaper the entire time. And then you park in this random place that's free, like on the top of a mountain, and it's like the most beautiful thing ever. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. I'm just on my way to Yellowstone. But really that was like, turned out to be even more beautiful in a way. And so then you get there, and it's like whew, I don't know, maybe 30 something bucks a night to park your thing in the Yellowstone. All the gas prices are like double once you cross a certain point. And that's okay. It's okay. We're in Yellowstone. It's worth it, right? And you've seen the animals, the geysers and stuff. But you're like stuck in traffic. I mean, there's traffic in Yellowstone. There's millions of people there. It's crazy. There's traffic. There's lines. And it's amazing. It's a great experience. Just absolutely do it if you can. But what was like even more rewarding, beautiful, and inspiring was the places that I saw on the way there that I never would have seen. I didn't even know where I was going. I'm on my way to Yellowstone. It's like I find a place to park and see. And those turned out to be some of the best experiences. So because of this lifestyle, you will have that. That's what it would open up. But again, forever, for years, it takes a certain kind of person. And I could tell you, I was someone who that could appreciate camping, but I could never imagine camping every weekend. That's insane. It's way too much. And that was, I think, a good predictor for the fact that it was not a long-term, a suitable lifestyle for me, because that's the most important thing, is that it enables you to be with nature. Now, okay, there's another variation of Vanlife, which is you can do like a more urban kind of thing. Of course, it's your car. You could do both. You could switch back and forth. So I experimented with that a bit. After I had gotten bored of hanging out with the trees and mountains for months, did a little bit of more urban, using it to check out cities that were otherwise way too expensive. I never would have traveled to before. So that was cool. But that sits on a whole different flavor. And actually you should understand like yourself and what you're realistically going to do with your travel when you're thinking about your rig. So for example, like if you're just hanging out with the nature, they get respect. Absolutely. To the point where people have like these old school, like, if that's your cool luxury, and his old school bus, and then just fill it with a house basically. But if you ever want to spend a decent amount of time in your cities and stuff, actually having like the tall van or all that is actually a huge detriment, because especially in the West, which is really the best place to van life, almost the only place, there's a lot of unhoused people that are doing that in a less elegant way, you'd say, or a way that's a little more disruptive and annoying to the society there. Or at least they think so. So, like people see like a big tall van, they're like, oh, we don't want that. And so there's actually a lot of rules where you like, oh, in California, like you can't park vehicles over a certain height. So if you have a tall van, like you're not allowed to park in a lot of places. You get a ticket. And so if you think you're one of these city people, you're going to use it in most as a tool to see cities, less of nature, then you should know that when designing your raid, it's actually be better to have something got to talk. And the reality of like how much time you're actually spending in the vehicle standing up might be a lot less than you think, especially if you don't have, think about it, if you don't have air conditioning, like, you might as well be outside, right? Or in nature, like that's the little thing. Most of the time, you'd be surprised how much time they're actually spending like standing up in the thing. So I know like when I was looking into it, getting started, I was like convinced I have a certain type of vehicle and setup that I had to have. I mean, you're just looking at it online, it totally makes sense. Like it was totally logical. But then when you're out actually doing it, you realize that completely different than what you expected in every way, of like what you need, what you think you need, blah, blah. So the best way would be if someone could actually try it. So I'm just trying to tell you like the most obvious takeaways and lessons that you could definitely learn without trying it, which is like the likelihood that you're going to want to do it forever. If you're just trying to save money, super low. And then, yeah. So who is it for? It's for the people who really like the nature. Yes. It's not for saving money, if that's your primary goal, because it's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. And for most people, it's probably be easier to just make a little bit of money, but that's the same amount of time and effort. If your goal is just to just save money. So tips, where do you go from here? You're like, okay, I hear you. I'm thinking about it more cautiously. I understand that the reality is I'm probably not going to do this forever. But so what do I do? Because I have this desire. I'm so interested and fascinated. Well, my recommendation would be this. Get into it with as little cost as possible so that you can try it for around 3 to 6 months. And so that would be giving some sort of setup where you can resell it and put as little investment as possible that you won't get back out. And so that could be simply just using whatever car you have and then getting like a really sick tent. That could be buying some sort of really, really cheap van setup, knowing that you're just going to, in a few months, either upgrade or be able to resell it without losing too much. If you buy something really, really new, that's going to be difficult. But the thing is, like, you just really don't know what you want until you try it out. Like, no matter how much research you do, till you actually get out there and live in that life, like, you really don't know whether you're just going to be cool with chilling in the woods all day and you want this big house. Or if you really are cool with chilling in the woods all day, do you really need a big house? How much are you going to crave to be in your cities? And once you see how much some of it costs to park in a lot of these places, it's going to change your whole mind, because you have this vision of like the freedom, like, oh, if I can just have my house and the car and just go wherever I want to go. But you really can't. There's really like once you start driving, you're like on this thing where you can't get off and stop and park it somewhere, except in like these very few places. It's like you're getting on the interstate. When you're on the interstate, you got to keep driving. You can't just stop driving. Like you have to wait to get off somewhere to stop and eat, to rest, whatever. It's like that, but times 10. Like, you can't just park it and start sleeping and living anywhere. Like, there's very few designated areas. And then most of the time, right, the idea is you're traveling, you haven't been there before, you go to a place you think exists, it's full, or it doesn't exist anymore, or it's like not accessible. And so this idea that it's like super free, where you can just go wherever you want, that was the biggest like thing that I had in mind that turned out to not be true. So the sense of freedom is really, really way less. And it's going to be a great opportunity for you to travel, but this idea that you can just take it and go, but it's just not happening. And you have to, like, the bigger your thing is, the worse that becomes. So until you actually experience what you're going to be doing with it in the places you're content with, like parking it and hanging out for a while, it's going to be difficult to decide. Your rig is, so the more that you can just get in early, feel it out, and then decide, okay, am I sure I want to go big? Am I sure I want to invest? And that's better than nothing. Now, I will say the hardest part is, like, because before I got my setup, I was just doing it in my regular truck, HOD tamping for real with a tent. And the worst part about van life is for sure not having demand. That's tough. But you should do that for a little bit, and then it would make you appreciate the setup even more, and you will understand what you need in a setup. Okay, so what's the takeaway? Where do we go from here? Those are just a few of my lessons learned. It's kind of just like an introductory, like, hey, so I heard you're thinking about doing this. Here's some things to consider. So that's what that is, because what are your motivations for doing it? If it's really just to save money, then there are some alternatives for you. And we can discuss this in a separate topic, but just know that this is not the only way to like hack your way into escaping the matrix. And if you really like trees, this could be a long-term solution for you. But if you like people more than you like trees, then we got to talk about some other options for you. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure you watch again, maybe. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.